We don't like for money no more. With money. Well, I'm the nigga with money. I don't know about y'all.
The way I'ma show you how to turn up on your mother thing. Woo! God damn it, I just got an accident and I gotta keep going, so I'm gonna call y'all a I got to go, or whatever, because I'm not stopping.
She was just thrown out like she wasn't nothing, like she was nobody. She was somebody. She was my baby.
This is Janicia Mason, a 19-year-old mother of one, a Texas woman who would be found dead in a river moments after getting into the wrong car. On March 17, 2023, Janicia messaged her mother, Barbara, telling her that she missed her and was trying to get her life together. Little did Barbara know that would be the last time she would hear from her daughter, as she would vanish without a trace. Her family's worst nightmare unfolded over the next few days as they fought desperately for answers. Little did they know, their search for Janicia would lead to a horrifying discovery. It wasn't until March 23, 2023 that police made the grim discovery. Janicia's body was found in Fort Worth, Texas, under a bridge along the Trinity River. She had been shot twice and was callously dumped there. As police scrambled for answers, they uncovered a devastating truth. Surveilling footage showed Janicia getting into a red Chevrolet Monte Carlo with an unknown man. But before we get to the haunting footage that her family believes shows her killer, let me take you back to where this all began.
Okay, well, that's you. But on the other hand, me? Oh, I'm gonna turn up.
Janicia, or Nene Mason, born on February 12, 2004 in Shreveport, Louisiana, was a vibrant, loving young woman with dreams and aspirations that would give anyone a run for their money. Growing up in Shreveport, she was known for her infectious smile, kind spirit, and a personality that could fill any room with laughter. But her pursuit of a brighter future led her to make a bold decision. She moved to Euless, Texas in search of new opportunities and a fresh start. Her mother, Barbara Taylor, while hesitant about the move, ultimately supported her daughter's choice. Barbara and Janicia had a bond that many could only envy. They were more than mother and daughter. They were best friends. They spoke every single day, sharing their dreams, their struggles, and everything in between. To Barbara, Janicia wasn't just a daughter. She was a confidant, a source of joy, and the very heart of their family, which was a surprise when Janicia would just disappear without telling her.
Barbara told me Janicia just graduated high school, loved to do hair and nails and makeup, take videos, was looking forward to buying a car, getting braces. Her funeral will not happen here. Instead, Janicia will be laid to rest in Louisiana, where she was born.
At just 19 years old, Janicia was on the brink of adulthood with the world at her feet. Having recently graduated from high school, she was ready to carve out a path for herself and maybe the world even. But it wouldn't be as easy as she thought. She worked at both Ulta Beauty and Chick-fil-A, taking pride in her independence. Her dreams were simple but meaningful. She hoped to buy her first car, get braces, and take her first steps towards adulthood with the love and support of her close-knit family behind her. Her future seemed filled with endless possibilities, and she was determined to make the most of it. But those dreams would be shattered far too soon as Genesia's life was tragically taken from her in an unfathomable act of violence. At the center of Genesia's world was her 5-year-old son, the light of her life. She was an adoring mother, and everything she did was for him. Her family was her rock, especially her mother and younger sister, who were her greatest supporters and sources of strength. The bond between them was irreplaceable, and in many ways, Genesia's journey had just begun, yet she was stolen from them too soon. Genesia's love for life, beauty, and creativity was evident in her everyday activities. She had a natural talent for doing hair, nails, and makeup, and loved sharing her skills with friends and followers on social media. Her posts were filled with tutorials, fun moments, and the kind of positivity that made her so well loved by everyone around her. To those who knew her, Genesia wasn't just a daughter or a friend. She was a bright star whose life was just beginning to shine. But no one expected Genesia would soon vanish without a trace. On March 17, 2023, Barbara received the last text message from her daughter. Genesia had sent a simple, "Mama, I miss you too. I'm trying to get my life together." It seemed like just another normal conversation. However, when Barbara tried to reach out to her daughter the following day, there was no response. Genesia's phone went unanswered, and Barbara's concern quickly grew into fear. This is unlike her daughter. She would not leave her calls unanswered, let alone when it's from her mother. She waited for another day, hoping it was just a delay. But as hours passed without contact, Barbara filed a missing persons report with the police. This decision would mark the beginning of a horrible series of events. Genesia's family wasn't sure what had happened, but they knew something was terribly wrong. They began a search of their own, with Barbara and her husband even traveling to Texas to look for their daughter. But it won't be long before a body would be found. While searching, Barbara and her husband came across another body, but the body wasn't Genesia's. It was a black male, and the discovery only deepened their confusion and pain. Days passed and the search continued, but the authorities had no answers. Meanwhile, across town, another piece of the puzzle was falling into place. On March 23, 2023, just days after Genesia went missing, police made the grim discovery. Genesia's body was found in Fort Worth, Texas, under a bridge along the Trinity River. She had been shot twice and was callously dumped there. She had been shot twice and was unceremoniously dumped there, left to lie in a bed of rocks, with no one around to mourn her except for those who would soon learn of the tragedy. But detectives would notice disturbing markings and impressions in the dirt. These signs were found between Genesia's body and the gravel strip near the edge of the road. This crucial discovery indicated that she hadn't been killed where she was found. Instead, it suggested that Genesia's lifeless body had been dragged from another location, possibly to be disposed of in the remote spot where she was ultimately discovered. It was becoming increasingly clear that this wasn't just a tragic accident, but a deliberate act that had been carefully planned. The question now was, where had she been killed and why was her body left in such a public and vulnerable place? The pain of this discovery was overwhelming for Barbara, who had spent days in agony, hoping for the safe return of her daughter. Barbara's anguish was evident when she spoke to the media, explaining,
She was just thrown out like she wasn't nothing, like she was nobody. She was somebody. She was my baby.
Police say Genesia went missing out of Dallas March 19th, but found her body all the way in Fort Worth 4 days later. It's not clear how she got there or how she died. Investigators won't say much, but are asking, aggressively and urgently, for anyone with information to come forward.
These were words from a mother whose world had just been shattered, whose worst fears had been realized. Her daughter, a young woman full of promise and life, was now gone, and Barbara was left to grapple with an unbearable loss.
We're back with the family, desperate to find out what happened to a young woman from Dallas after her body was discovered under a bridge. Genesia Mason's family reported her missing in Dallas earlier this month, and a few days later, police found her body under a bridge in Fort Worth. Mason's mother told Sydney Persing someone has to know something about her 19-year-old daughter.
Under this bridge, by the dirt and weeds and bugs, this is where Fort Worth police found 19-year-old Janicia Mason's body, called her mom Barbara to make the ID.
She was just thrown out like she wasn't nothing, like she was nobody. She was somebody. She was my baby.
Meanwhile, investigators now had a victim. They had a location, but they didn't have a suspect. They didn't have a witness to the actual crime. They didn't have a name. What they did have was determination to find justice for a 19-year-old girl whose last words to her mother were about trying to get her life together. But as detectives pieced together the timeline, a new suspect emerged. On the evening of March 23, 2023, at around 9 p.m., surveillance footage showed Janicia getting into a red Chevrolet Monte Carlo with a Hispanic man in an area known for street prostitution. At that moment, Janicia's phone pinged in the same area, confirming she was there. The car would later become the key piece of evidence in the investigation. It was hours after the last known sighting that Janicia's lifeless body was discovered under the bridge in Fort Worth. The circumstances surrounding her death were chilling. Not only had she been shot twice, but her body had been callously discarded. But investigators were closing in on a suspect, 29-year-old Joseph Aparicio. A swab taken in the front passenger seat of the Monte Carlo returned a shocking result. It tested positive for blood. The discovery was significant, but it was the follow-up evidence that truly intensified the investigation. Women's clothing, which closely matched the outfit that Janicia had been wearing the night she went missing, was found in Joseph's bedroom. This finding raised even more troubling questions. How did Janicia's clothes end up in his home, and why had Joseph kept them in his private space? The evidence suggested that something sinister had taken place, and it quickly became clear that Janicia's disappearance was no longer a matter of mere coincidence. Every new detail painted a chilling picture. Joseph Aparicio, 29, was arrested and booked into the Tarrant County Jail around 1:20 a.m., charged with the brutal murder of 19-year-old Janicia. As he sat behind bars, questions about the motive and the events leading up to Janicia's tragic death remained unanswered. However, the most shocking revelation was yet to come. The mystery deepened when it was discovered that Joseph Aparicio had a criminal history. In 2022, he had been charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, adding to the suspicions surrounding his involvement in Janicia's death. Despite his previous run-ins with the law, it was still unclear what exactly had triggered Joseph's violent outburst. But investigators had a speculation. They suspected that something had set Joseph off after he picked up Janicia, eventually leading him to take her life and callously dump her body under a bridge. What had happened between them that night? What had caused Joseph Aparicio to snap and end Janicia's life in such a brutal manner? Not only that, when investigators dig deeper into Joseph's background, they learned that Janicia had last been seen alive with him in Dallas, but her body was found nearly 30 miles away in Fort Worth. This posed another question. How had she traveled such a distance, and what exactly happened during those hours between when she was last seen and when her body was found? Barbara and her family were left to process the unbearable reality of their loss, while also dealing with the uncertainty of knowing who had done this to their daughter and why. As the days passed, their grief only grew, but they held on to the hope that justice would eventually be served. They continued to pray for answers and for the strength to get through each painful day. As Joseph Aparicio sat in a Tarrant County jail cell awaiting trial, investigators continued to piece together the events leading up to Janicia's tragic death. Although his arrest was a pivotal moment in the case, there were still many questions to be answered. How had Janicia ended up with Joseph? Was their connection personal, or was it the result of a random encounter? Authorities were working diligently to uncover more details about the night Janicia disappeared. Surveillance footage and phone records had already linked Joseph to the scene, but the true nature of their relationship was still shrouded in mystery. The fact that Janisha had been last seen alive in Dallas and her body found in Fort Worth, and the night she had gotten into Joseph's red Chevrolet Monte Carlo, she had been in an area known for street prostitution. While Janisha's family had been unaware of any involvement in this type of activity, the area's reputation made it more likely that Joseph may have lured her into his car under false pretenses. Janisha was laid to rest in the heart of Louisiana, the state where she was born, surrounded by the warmth of family, friends, and the undeniable sense of loss that gripped all who knew her. Her mother, Barbara Taylor, was left to face the unimaginable, trying to reconcile the vibrant life that Janisha once led with the brutal, senseless way in which it was taken. As Barbara and the rest of the family grappled with their grief, they held on to the hope that by speaking out about their pain, they might encourage others to help uncover the full truth behind Janisha's death. Barbara's unwavering love for her daughter, even in death, became a driving force in the quest for justice. She spoke not only as a heartbroken mother, but also as a woman who refused to let Janisha's life be forgotten. Barbara's voice, tinged with sorrow and courage, resonated with many who shared her pain. It was a pain that wasn't just hers, but one that echoed throughout the community. Janisha's life, full of promise and light, was snuffed out in an instant, and the brutal violence that led to her death left many feeling helpless. Friends, family, and even strangers felt the weight of the loss, knowing that such senseless tragedies happen too often, leaving behind shattered lives and unanswered questions. While the arrest of Joseph Aparicio provided some semblance of closure for Janisha's family, the questions surrounding his motives remained. The arrest was a step towards justice, but the why of the situation was far from clear. What had caused this young man with a criminal history and apparent volatility to commit such a horrific act against someone so full of life? And why Janisha? These lingering questions remained at the forefront of the investigation, even as Barbara and her family tried to heal. At least now, Janisha's family could begin the long process of healing. After months of investigation, digital forensics, and witness interviews, the case of Janisha Nene Mason finally made its way into the courtroom, and when the evidence was laid out, it painted a chilling and undeniable picture of what happened to the 19-year-old. Prosecutors detailed how Joseph Aparicio picked up Janisha on the night she disappeared, drove her to his home, and ultimately shot her twice in the head before dumping her body under a bridge in Fort Worth. Cell phone location data placed him at every critical point in the timeline, surveillance footage tracked his movements, and inside his bedroom, investigators found Janisha's clothing, blood evidence, and other forensic traces tying him directly to the murder. Faced with overwhelming proof, Joseph had nowhere left to run. In February 2025, inside a Tarrant County courtroom, he stood before the judge and pled guilty to the murder of Janisha Mason. There was no trial, no attempt to argue innocence, just a quiet admission of what he had done. The judge then delivered the sentence that would define the rest of Joseph's life. He was sentenced to life in prison. For Janisha's family, it was a painful relief. Justice had finally been served, but nothing could bring back the bright, loving 19-year-old whose life was stolen. As the courtroom emptied, one truth remained. Janisha's story would not be forgotten, and the man responsible would never walk free again. Barbara and her family members held on to the memories of Janisha's life. She had dreams of becoming a successful businesswoman, one who loved to do hair, nails, and makeup, and who had recently graduated high school. She was on the verge of starting a new chapter in her life, one that would be filled with opportunity and joy. But those dreams were cruelly taken away from her, and now Barbara was left trying to piece together what had happened. The case of Janisha Mason is a tragic reminder of the dangers that can exist, even in seemingly ordinary situations. Her life was taken in a horrific act of violence, and her family will never be the same. Her family and friends will continue to honor her memory and hope that her death will be a catalyst for change in the fight against violence. May Janisha's life and death inspire others to be more aware of the people they trust and the environments they find themselves in. May she rest in peace, and may her family find the strength to heal from the pain that will forever mark their lives. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.